Hi, it's Jerry the King Lawler, and you're tuned in to the Don Tony and Kevin Castle Show. I don't know why you are, but you are.
Amazing, says some guy. These men have changed broadcasting forever. The Don Tony and Kevin Castle Show.
Did you hear Roman Reigns? Yaki-da, huh? You get it, Kev?
Oh, yeah, I can't afford Skype. The baseball analogy.
Yeah, Kev, I just thinking, with Yaki-da, I don't speak Japan, and you f***ing people.
Oh, yeah, f*** you, DT.
What do you think about that, Kev?
Oh, well, Batista's pretty f***ing sexy, and did I mention Roman Reigns gives me a boner? And, 1980s baseball and wrestling was better than anything else.
DonTony.com.
What's going on, everybody? It is Monday night, August 10th, 8/10/20. Welcome to this edition of the Don Tony and Kevin Castle Show. I am Don Tony, and joining along with me is
Kev Castle. What's up, TT?
Yeah, not much. Raw just went off the air. I think this was a separation that was absolutely needed. Get rid of Ric Flair as far as the storyline goes. Show that Randy Orton is cold and he has no allegiances with anybody. But, when you have the bullshit lights go out, so we don't see the very sloppy punt because he is a 71-year-old frail man that should not be taking any bumps whatsoever. And it's funny because it's pre-recorded. So you ask yourself, why couldn't they have done more than one take if it looks shitty on TV? But instead, right when he's about to kick him, the lights go out. It kind of reminded me of when I was a kid and I'd watch regular television, and you watch like a horror film that's edited for TV, and right before you see like the stabbing, like it just cuts out completely and you get the next scene. I did not like the end of Raw. The Ric Flair's promo, and Ric Flair's promo was beautiful. The emotion was there. Everything that was said was really heartfelt, but, when you have to shut the lights off so people can't see how horrendous it looks, it shows you why it's probably a mistake that Ric Flair was involved in this storyline at all.
Well, you think it has to just write him off because of the COVID scare, or they just had to find a way to get him off in general? But you think it has to do with the COVID situation?
I think no, I don't think it has anything to do with COVID, because if Ric Flair had COVID, he wouldn't be in the ring right now, and Ric Flair doesn't have COVID, so why would COVID force the lights to go out to hide a really horrendous looking punt? COVID or not, it just, I think, look, they couldn't even have Ric Flair do the RKO, which I wouldn't do. And it also, makes you think about, my God bless Mae Young and Moolah for taking the bumps they did at their ages, 80 years old. But Ric Flair is extremely frail. They can't, the only way that Randy Orton could get him on the floor to simulate the punt was the nut shot. There was no other way to get Ric Flair on the mat. And, Ric Flair is just like on his knees, waiting for the punt. And you got the people in the crowd, no, Randy, no, Randy, no. And then the lights go out. I let it go because Ric Flair is 71 and has no business being active in anything. But this should be a little lesson for WWE that if someone physically can't even take a spot with the lights on, you probably shouldn't have had that person in the ring in the first place.
No, and Rick has definitely shown his age. I mean, even the close-ups and stuff, it's that took a toll on him. What happened to him a couple of years ago with the coma and all those days in the hospital definitely took a toll. He's never been the same, and understandably. I mean, totally understandably. It doesn't matter if it's Ric Flair or the guy next door. I mean, he's an old 71, and he's an old 71 because he lived a hard life for most of his years, and he was meeting a hard living, drinking, partying on the road and stuff. It's taken his toll, and he contributes best he can, but I don't think the fans want to see him. And I think even fans, not to say it to make fun of him, say, I just don't want to see Ric Flair anymore because it's making me sad.
Yeah, it makes you sad. That's what it is. Look, I appreciate Ric Flair on TV. I appreciate any veterans that could, make some cameos, do a few things here and there. But when you see someone that frail, that it's not just storyline, that the guy is really, really frail. And you have to hide it that much to make it look like a Retribution brief power outage to hide the punt. I don't know, man. I let it go because Ric Flair has entertained me for decades and decades and decades. But that makes me sad. It makes me sad to see someone that frail. But, as I've said on this show many times before, this is all Ric Flair has, other than his wife. This is all he has. Wrestling has been his life. He doesn't want to be without it. So any involvement at all to him it's gravy. It's it is what it is.
And DT, you don't think, just Rick probably just doesn't have it in him to do the rigors of being a backstage guy, an agent, or even like that. You don't think Rick maybe is for that job, or even his health doesn't allow him to do a job like that? So I think be around it.
I think it's health, but not only that. I think Ric Flair. I don't know the guy personally, but my gut feeling is Ric Flair, prefers to mingle with, his boys. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Ric Flair wants to go up to Leon Ruff and giving him tips and pointers as far as promos and things. I just think Ric Flair, he doesn't have that much time left, obviously. So he just wants to enjoy life as much as possible. And I think him being around his friends and his wife, that's what matters most. And, and his daughter obviously as well. Family, obvious. But I don't think Ric Flair wants to be an agent backstage and that rigor. Even if he was just limited to just staying in Florida, I don't see that. Not this far in the game. He's got so many health issues that they think you could hide it wearing a nice suit, but the health issues are still there.
Yeah, he cut the promo is very heartfelt, and Rick always, he still has it as far as that's concerned. The way he came across in that very realistic promo. So, this is a way to take him out of this whole thing. And, again, like you said, I'm not going to shit on it too much. I thought they did the best they could under the limited conditions they have with Ric Flair.
Yeah. Now, everybody, we're going to do the Raw recap tonight. We're going to also talk a little bit about Kamala, maybe one or two other topics, and that pretty much will be calling a night. We saw the Raw opening the graphic for Kamala. 70 years old. We all know his health conditions over the years, double amputee because of his health conditions. And few people had reported that, because he's been on dialysis, he's always going to the hospital, I think, like 3 times a week to get, his I guess it's his kidneys cleaned out. That's what happens when you go to dialysis. They clean your blood out. And somehow he caught coronavirus. And he was in the hospital, I think it was Sunday. He was in the hospital and he was doing better. And then he went into cardiac arrest and just passed away. So we don't know if COVID put him over the top or if, he was just in that poor health. But, you know, my gut feeling from seeing everything on TV and following COVID so closely, you have any underlying health issues, you know, I kind of compare it to, like, if you have something that is so fragile that just a little pressure will break it in two, like COVID, you know, it will just break it in two. Like someone who is just holding on to life and has all these issues, you get COVID and that's it. The minute it starts wreaking havoc on your body, you don't even have a chance to fight it. And, you know, he died quickly, you know, which I think that's some solace for some people out there. WWE obviously did not have any tribute package made. For those that don't know, and I've talked about this many times in the past, news outlets is a perfect example. I mean, if anybody out there followed mainstream news when Regis died, I watched Fox News 15 minutes after Regis was reported that he passed away. Fox News had Julia Banderas doing this like 8-minute tribute to him with all these clips lined up. And that's not because, you know, Julia, get on TV. They pre-record tributes for tons of people who are up there in age, who have health issues. There are tribute videos already made for Ric Flair. There are tribute videos made for Hogan. There's tribute videos made for a lot of people. This way, if something happens abruptly, about 90% of their work is already done.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. That's kind of, it's not a trick of the trade. That's maybe sounds a little callous to say that term, but a lot of TV stations and stuff do have it in the can, so to speak. They have stuff done for people who are elderly. I'm sure there's tons done on guys like Clint Eastwood, right, DT? Guys in their 90s that just in case something happens, they have something ready to go. So, I mean, it's not really morbid or too cryptic. It's kind of realistic, you know? And again, because you can't put something together so quickly. I'm surprised they didn't do a little package on Kamala tonight, DT. They probably could have did a little something, don't you think?
Well, I guess they want to do a full-blown, or don't. You see, this is the problem, and this is I actually have no problem that WWE didn't do it tonight for the simple reason that since they are pre-recorded and since the passing just happened yesterday, you don't have tons of people in production that could start putting all this stuff together, reading a bio, getting clips of a lot of memorable moments in his wrestling career, not just in WWE. So with everything that's going on, you know, you'll see the tribute on SmackDown. That gives them a little bit extra time. Now, SmackDown is taped, I guess, tomorrow. So if it's being taped tomorrow, they don't have much time to do it, but they really were left with almost no time. You know, and they either want to do a full-blown tribute or no tribute at all. So, and just 1 second. Roger Rubio, shout out to you, my friend. I'm glad you got the bobblehead. Roberto, I talked to you at 1 a.m. on Friday night about the bobblehead. It's going out tomorrow. All right, so, you know, I don't ship on Sundays. But I promise you, you know, I'm putting everything together. You'll get it sometime later this week, and it'll be worth it, trust me. But you want to talk a couple of moments about Kamala, since WWE was unable to really put up any type of tribute? I mean, I'm sure they have on their website now, but, you know, 70 years old. I think a lot of, you know, the one thing that I kept seeing written over and over again is that Kamala's character, you would never be able to get away with that in 2020. Do you agree with that? Do you think it's racist?
Yeah, of course. I mean, listen, even did you see what Lenny Dykstra, me and you are old school Mets fans, DT Dykstra posted about, and I don't know, again, I don't know if he's a wrestling fan. He did it to get a reaction. But when he posted about RIP to Kamala and all the people out in Uganda who like felt the loss, and there are people like, is he kidding? Was that like a? And he's like, well, I'm sure he has heritage there. Did you see Lenny Dykstra's tweet? I
saw his tweet and a bunch of others. But what was, you know, like it wasn't outlandish. I mean,
no, that's what I'm saying. Like, but that's what I'm saying is that people want to find something like he wasn't even Uganda. He was James Harris, a truck driver from Mississippi. And it's like, well, I'm sure he might have had some heritage maybe in Africa and stuff, but didn't he? And I didn't think that was actually bad for Dykstra Sagan. No, I don't think he was even being nasty, but anybody can find something offensive in anything. And today, I think people would be like, oh, come on, a character like that in this day and age. But DT, we all know in certain there's parts of the globe all over that, the man is not even tapped into, that there are wild tribes and cannibalistic tribes. That's real in New Guinea and stuff like that. In parts of Africa, there are people like Kamal. That's not a work. That's true. Now, to have someone like that in wrestling, I mean, that's a gimmick. But is that racially offensive? I mean, let's poll the listeners, the people in the chat. Does anybody think that that's really offensive?
Do you think it's racially offensive?
I don't know. What do the people think in the chat? I don't think it is. No, I don't think it's racial or offensive. No.
See,
I
think a lot of, first of all, I don't think the character would be created in 2020. Just like I'm not sure how much the Iron Sheik would have been created in the early 80s. And the reason why I say that, and this is why people need to really learn their history and not just immediately try to get emotional. The reason why I had no issue with Lenny Dykstra's tweet is because there is an area in Uganda called Kamala. And if anybody ever followed Memphis wrestling, and Jerry Lawler, I think, might have been on Bully Ray's podcast today, and he told the story that, Idi Amin, who was the leader of Uganda, I think it was 1977, there were stories at that time that Idi Amin used to be a cannibal. And there are areas in Uganda that actually do have cannibalism. And, people need to remember the time frame. We're talking early 80s, and Idi Amin was the leader of Uganda. There is a town in Uganda called Kamala, and Jerry Lawler, who has told this story many times before, he was a fan of an artist. I don't remember the artist's name, but I have the picture on right now for everybody. That the picture you see on the right with that Ugandan headhunter, everybody thinks, Kamala was the Ugandan giant. He was also early on called Ugandan headhunter, because that in Uganda there are headhunters, and that picture that everybody's looking at was a Ugandan headhunter who, I guess, they were going to cannibalize that woman, and somebody comes to the rescue. Jerry Lawler saw that artwork, and Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett, they basically came up with Kamala's outfit. They took that Ugandan headhunter and they based the makeup and everything on that photo. And that's what was going on in Uganda at that time, with Idi Amin, being reported that he used to be a cannibalist and he was the leader. So they basically created a character based on Uganda at the time. And in fact, since everybody knew Idi Amin was the leader and was a cannibal, nobody cited racism because there were areas of Uganda that does that. So the reason why I don't think it would jive in 2020 has nothing to do with racial overtones, because you might find some areas in other worlds where there is cannibalism. But the thing is that, when you think of the Iron Sheik, you also think about his character before. But, the Hostages was 1979. Right before, when Carter was still president. 1979 was the Hostages, and I guess they were released in 81. And then you had other issues with Iran and the United States, and that's why that blew up the way it is. I don't even know if Sergeant Slaughter would have ever been a G.I. Joe hero if you didn't have evil characters like the Iron Sheik, who reflected Iran and some other areas of the world. So I never looked at it as racist. I think people out there, if they think back to the time when this was created and why it was created, it wasn't racist at all. It was very well done.
It was well done. Actually, if anybody wants to see a good movie about Idi Amin, because we're throwing his name around tonight, it's a movie called The Last King of Scotland that came out in 2006. You know the actor D.T. Forrest Whitaker, of course. He played Idi Amin. He put on 50 pounds for the role. It was a fantastic film. It's from 2006, Last King of Scotland. You'll see a lot about Idi Amin and a lot about that side of the globe, and you'll learn a lot about Uganda. From that movie. So that's Idi Amin, if anybody, younger fans are not familiar with the guy. And they called him the Butcher of Uganda. He reigned from like 71 to 79. Saturday Night Live used to do jokes about him all the time, Bill Murray and Chevy Chase on the news on Saturday Night Live. That's how I first heard the name. But yeah, Kamala came out in 82. And DT, you remember the famous backyard footage that Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler did? I think, was it in Jerry Jarrett's backyard, DT?
It was his pond. They put dry ice in the pond to give the simulation that it was smoky, and he came out of the water.
Yeah, and back then they were calling him Kamala with an I, and then they changed it to an A within like a couple of weeks. With that original promo was Kamala. They called him with an I. And they billed him originally, DT, 6'9", 385 pounds. DT, I don't think he was ever near the 400-pound mark. Do you? A little much on the weight there.
I think he could have been. Yeah. I mean, I was 365 10 years ago, so if I put a picture of me next to him, I might have been a little taller than him, but no, I think he could have been close to 4 bills at some point.
Okay, yeah, he's actually James Harris. His weight and height is 6'7". They have him listed out legitimately. I never even thought he was that tall because I've seen him in pictures with other people. I thought he was about 6'5", maybe if they do the wrestling add inches to his height. But again, he had his run in the DT. I think he wrestled in every territory: NWA, Mid Atlantic.
Yeah, he wrestled all over the place. Sure,
everywhere. And again, I was trying to find footage of him as Sugar Bear Harris when he was like a job guy in Mid-South for Bill Watts. But again, he played the character so good. DT, you have to admit, too, when you were a young kid, you were a couple years younger than me, you believed in his character, right, when you were a young kid watching him, right? You didn't think, oh, this is probably some guy dressed up. I mean, he was very believable. And no one had a video of him talking. And now to see him talking with Mean Gene and some of those outros and stuff like that, and those secret clips. It's really weird to see him talk to Mean Gene.
People were bringing it up, and out of respect to the passing of Kamala, I'm not going there. And a lot of you know what I'm talking about. And believe it or not, I actually, for those that don't know, and I could say this, we're right about the 10-year anniversary that I had that feud with Kamala because of the Dawn Marie Wrestlers Rescue stuff. So I actually interacted with him quite a bit 10 years ago. And after a few conversations, I remember a couple of episodes that I had done where I actually said, this guy is a really, really nice guy. I always thought there was just some confusion between him and Dawn Marie, but, when he had his legs amputated because of the diabetes, and a lot of people may forget this, but last year, and people could check the GoFundMe, you'll see my name there. Last year, GoFundMe was set up because he was going to lose his house because he ran behind on his property taxes. They were going to put a lien on the house and take it. And I don't like singling out anybody as far as being generous, but I have to because his name always pops up and he never advertises it. But if people go look, Chris Jericho made a tremendous donation towards Kamala's expenses last year. And I'm not going to lie, I made a little donation because I kind of felt guilty of, calling him a liar 10 years ago with that stuff. But, I also, a couple of weeks later, cleared that up and said that I think it was just legit miscommunication. But he, everybody that talks about him, I'm curious if Hogan has said anything. I mean, I'm blocked by Hogan, so I can't see what he writes. But
I don't think so.
Everybody is talking nothing about nice when it comes to Kamala. Really, really heartfelt stuff from Bret Hart, to, my God, even Vic Joseph. If you want to go the broad spectrum, I mean, it's just, you got to see, like, everybody out there paying tribute to the guy. I mean, it's sad to see him go because you know all the pain and suffering he has had for over a decade. But, you know, he's out of his misery. And you know what? I know this sounds very cliche, but something tells me in the heavens he's got his legs.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you. You know, DT, remember that time not that long ago, one of his final appearances in WWE when he wrestled Umaga? Remember that?
Yeah. You know what? I always tell everybody, I've always told everybody the last 24 hours I've talked to about this. Any newer fans out there that never really experienced Kamala, even though it's very, very goofy, but if you want to see something that'll make you laugh, I think it was 2004 Divas Search, when they had all the divas and they were in front of some type of a curtain. They pulled the curtain away, and here's Kamala, and he jumps out, and they're like, oh, you know, you got a cute little belly, and they're trying to like get Kamala to be all nice and everything. It was stupid comedy, but you watch that back, it puts a smile on my face. I mean, that guy was just a really, really nice guy. I can't say nothing bad about him at all.
Yeah, one of the best. I mean, people talk about Undertaker, one of the greatest characters of all time. Kamala's up there, too, as one of the greatest characters, living the gimmick, so to speak, on the road. He wouldn't talk to anybody and stuff. To maintain that character for many years. Oh, by the way, DT, because I know you're blocked by him, so I'll read what he wrote. Hulk Hogan didn't make a tweet. It says, very saddened by the passing of Big Jim Kamala. Like everyone else, I would always ask if it was okay to take the leg drop for the finish as requested by the office. And Jim Kamala would always say, let's just keep making that money to Hogan. He was such a kind soul. R.I.P. Big brother. Only love for you, Hulk Hogan.
That's nice. That's nice. Yeah. You know, like I said, I have yet to see anybody say a bad thing about him. And you know what? Even before his passing, I mean, you know, there were times where he, you know, made some really, you know, deep accusations to WWE with racism and others. And look at the infamous stories of him talking about his pay grade, even when he was feuding with Hogan. There may be a good argument for that. You know, but I think deep down inside, he was just a real gentle giant, and everybody's paying tribute. And like I said, I think WWE just did not have enough time today to put that together. And you know what? They'll probably make a beautiful tribute on Thursday. It'll probably be on WWE.com even sooner than that. And, you know, rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace, Kamala. Thanks for the memories. A lot of... like I said, a lot of the terrific world class. I remember him just everywhere, and one of the, probably I would even put him top 5 characters of all time.
Yeah, they're just unique characters. He's definitely top 10. Yeah. So just getting back to 2020 a little bit, you know, it was reported over the weekend. Actually, he kind of insinuated it himself on some social media. MVP has signed a contract extension with the WWE for multiple years. What do you think as far as MVP sticking around for a couple of years?
Again, DT, I was wrong about AJ Styles a few years ago when I thought he wasn't going to do much in WWE. And MVP coming back, I shitted all over it a couple of months ago when he first came back. I'm like, oh, why they bring this guy in? And he's proved me wrong. He's actually proved his value in running the hurt business, and even on the mic, he's actually grown on me. I think he's grown on a lot of fans. A lot of fans are like, yeah, I've done a complete about face on MVP. He's good in the role that he's in. He's good with his crew. He's good as the leader of it. I'm not even minding the VIP lounges anymore. I've just completely changed my mind on MVP. Where I saw him come back, I was like, ugh, during WrestleMania. And now I look forward to his segments. I actually pay attention, and he actually impresses me. So I'm good with it. I'm totally good with it.
You know, it's funny, when he first came back, you know, he was going to do that one, I think, match with Mysterio, and he wanted to just have his son see him perform on Raw once, and that was it. Then he did the MVP lounge once or twice, and I think everybody will admit when he first did the MVP lounge, I think he just had to find his place, because there's a lot of things you can't say anymore in the WWE, you know, ring. TNA, you know, if anybody wants to revisit that, or maybe you've never seen it at all, just check out some of the promos that MVP cut in TNA. There was some vulgarity involved, and some of it was really over the top to a lot of people. So I think in the beginning, my guess is that MVP was kind of on eggshells when he came back and first started to do the MVP lounge, because the VIP lounge, because I think he was very cautious as far as what he can say and what he can't. Then I think he got comfortable very quickly, and he realized, that there's a lot of references he can make that's not racial, that's not over the top, that's not vulgar. You could take a shot at someone who, belongs in catering, and, he found his spot. He's doing a great job with Lashley. He's doing a great job with Shelton Benjamin, even though that's still fairly new. I tell you, man, I really cannot criticize this at all. I can't. I mean, do I want to see him with a title anytime soon? No. But as far as him as a manager and being the leader of a faction or the figurehead for a faction, I think he is really, especially under the circumstances, he's doing a fine job. Now, we have no idea how much he signed for.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, do you have any idea?
No, we have no idea. And for MVP, that guy might be a lot more humble as far as having the opportunity, because he thought it was a one-shot deal when he came back. He wanted so his son could see him perform, and that's it. So the deal might not be, like big bucks, but, he seems very comfortable. He's got a presence to himself, and he's doing a good job. And I think, Lashley doesn't need this, but he will ultimately benefit, I think, some younger stars over there. Maybe Cedric indirectly, maybe some others directly. But I think, of course, Darren, he's no Paulie. Nobody's a Paulie. But MVP has earned his keep as far as, 2020 goes. So I have no objection to it whatsoever.
Oh, yeah, we're in total agreement. He's doing a fine job, and it was a good call locking him down to a contract.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Raw, and then we'll get into 1-2 more topics, and we'll call it a night. Want to give a shout-out to our newest associate producer, Roberto Romero, very vocal on our chat, as everybody could see. Zach Spooner Moore, Henry Castillo, John Don. By the way, does anybody out there have Sling? I'm just curious if anybody out there uses Sling as a streaming service. I have Sling now for 2 weeks, and I can't tell you, if I had $1 every time they promoted Stu Bennett's movie, Wade Barrett's movie. Has anybody else out there experienced that? Like, I watch, it could be fucking reruns of Forensic Files, it could be stuff from today. Like, every 10 minutes, John Bone, whatever his name is in a movie. Yeah, a lot of people are bringing out. I mean, this guy, he should be kissing Sling's ass, because when I saw John Don, joining up on Patreon, I immediately thought of Stu Bennett's name. What was his character's name in that movie? It was like John Dorn or something like that. And man, they play it. I've watched that commercial, no bullshit, in 2 weeks. I've watched that commercial at least 100 times already. Not even exaggerating. So, shout out to Pancho Serrano, tuning in from Tijuana, by the way. So, shout out to Raymond Pagella, John Coffey, and our returning patrons. But let's talk a little bit about Raw. As we said earlier, opened up with a little photo tribute to Kamala. Nothing was said by the commentators, so it is what it is. I personally think this Raw might have been taped last week. I don't know if that's true, but it kind of felt like Raw was taped last week. Some of the familiar faces in Raw Underground seem to be dressed the same. I don't know why we didn't get the girls, dancing this time around. But if Raw was taped last week, that's probably it is the number one reason why none of the commentators mentioned Kamala at all. But we opened up with the contract signing. Seth Rollins and Dominik. And, we have Samoa Joe, which, do you think he's going to be wrestling Seth Rollins anytime soon? Or you think he's just being really good, on the mic right now?
Well, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure what his role is going to be. I don't know if he's cleared to wrestle or whatever. But I love when Samoa Joe gets into these things with Seth Rollins. Last week at the desk, and now this week again, he alludes to, anytime Seth wants to try him, he's ready to go. I don't know if he's cleared literally to wrestle, but I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Samoa Joe back in the ring. I think we would have heard if he was done or anything like that. I think he's just maybe resting some injuries, and eventually he'll get back in the ring. But he did a good job tonight, as usually doing. Jerry Lawler was doing this before he took Lawler's spot, doing these contract signings. And again, I told you I'm becoming a big fan of Dominik Mysterio. I mean, again, he's just kind of finding his way. He looks like a rookie. I mean, he's got rookie written all over him. And again, even Samoa Joe was saying, he hasn't really been in the ring. We don't really know what he can do, and that's what I've been saying. Yeah, we don't know what he can do. We know he could swing a stick pretty good. But I'm liking the kid, and I'm liking this matchup with Rollins. And they showed the aftermath, DT, of him getting caned. And he took it the hard way. Did you see his back in some of those pictures after he took the caning, Dominik Mysterio?
Let's set this up a little bit. They brought Dominik to the ring. He's got a Singapore cane in his hand. Seth Rollins is already in the ring with Murphy. Samoa Joe, they threatened suspension if he got physical. But I'll get back to Joe in a second. Maybe that's the reason why Joe seemed to have disappeared when everything was going down. Maybe that little seed of, Joe, if you get involved, you're going to be suspended. Maybe that's why. I personally think that they should have teased Joe trying to stop what was happening to Dominik, but he just vanished. I would have rather seen, and basically what happened was it was a double contract signing for Dominik. One contract officially makes him a WWE superstar. Second contract is for the match at SummerSlam. Seth Rollins, really talking smack to Dominik. And Dominik basically straightened to the point that, I'm looking forward to kicking your ass at SummerSlam. If you watch closely, Dominik has the same pauses that his father has. I mean, you watch a Ray promo and you watch Dominik cut his promo, he's got those same pauses. If it's a style of how Ray talks, Dominik does the same thing. Dominik, look, he's not charismatic on the mic yet. He's brand new. But, the whole idea is to play him off that he's a rookie, that he hasn't really been in the ring much. So, him not being polished right now is the perfect way to go with him. Right, So then they do the contract signing, and we get a match between Humberto Carrillo and Seth Rollins, which we've seen a few times already. And Seth Rollins beats Carrillo in about 3 minutes. And the next thing you know, Murphy attacked Dominik after the match. Dominik fought back a little bit, and then Rollins and Murphy just had a field day with Dominik, tied him up on the ropes, and just started handing him Singapore cane shots. Now, last week, Dominik gave quite a few to Seth Rollins. Now, what I find very interesting, I don't know if anybody picked up on this, but last week, if I remember correctly, Seth Rollins showed online like a lot of marks on his body. Did you see those last week?
Yeah, I saw.
If Raw both episodes were taped a day apart, his back looked awfully clean and free of marks, with his match with Carrillo. Because if Raw was taped last week, it was taped the same day probably, or the next day, unless maybe, they did the match with Carrillo before. I don't know. But maybe, yeah. I'll say this. WWE will always add a little makeup to make things look a lot worse than what they are. Somebody gets a little bit of a shiner, a couple of bruises, they'll put some makeup to make it worse. But Dominik, honestly, and I got to enlarge these, he earned his keep, man. I mean, yes, there's a little makeup involved there, but that is the front of his body, and that is the back of his body. And he took some big-time shots, and he was selling it great, very, very loud. You know, I've complained about Carrillo and others that when they, you know, get attacked sometimes, you don't hear them. They become mutes. You know, you don't hear any, like, pain coming out of their voice. You'll just see them, like, with their facial reactions. But, you know, my God, this set up a street fight. I think Seth Rollins even said that Dominik could bring the Singapore cane. And, you know, even Ray went on social media and is playing along that, you know, there's going to be some massive revenge on Seth Rollins for what he did. I tell you, man, I can't complain. The only thing I can complain about, like I said, is that Samoa Joe, nobody came to the rescue of Dominik. No. You know, I would have liked to have seen Samoa Joe try to hit the ring, and then maybe Seth Rollins gets on the mic. Come on, Joe, you're going to get suspended. Good. Touch me, Joe. You're going to get suspended. Like, you try to do that, and that forces Samoa Joe to basically not do anything. To just have him disappear. If I have to complain about anything, it would be that.
Yeah, overall, I like the kid, though. I think he's got a good upside, and it looks like he wants to prove himself, and, you know, he's doing whatever it takes. And I'm looking forward to seeing him in a full-fledged wrestling match, and wrestling attire, and see how he goes with a full match. So I'm looking forward to him. So far, I like what I see. I
don't know if he's going to be in attire. I wouldn't be surprised if he's got, like, just maybe some pants or so, not jeans, because you gotta obviously need to move around comfortable in them. But yeah. You know what? I would like to possibly see him wearing something paying tribute to his father.
Think so? You don't think it'll be more like kind of like maybe an X-Pac kind of thing because he's a smaller guy, or
he's not that small.
Yeah.
He's not that small.
Yeah, I was maybe 6 feet. So I mean, but he's thin. You know, doesn't got a big physique on him or anything, but. Yeah, maybe something like the pants that his dad wears, maybe something like that, similar. But I think he wants to probably, you know, cut his own path, which is great, you know. And again, want to see what he can do in the ring, because even like I said, Samoa Joe said in the promo, we don't know what he can do, you know, and that, everyone's kind of saying that. So let's see. So far, like I said, as far as the fighting angles and having some passion and going in there for the fight, he's shown some good stuff. Now let's see if he can do some wrestling stuff.
Yeah, Ken. I hope, you know, we answered that as far as Samoa Joe's promos. I am very impressed with Joe's work. He's outstanding. I do miss Jerry Lawler, but I think Joe has been phenomenal on the mic. I think Joe realizes that, you know, years fly by very, very quickly. And Joe is not a spring chicken anymore. And, you know, this is a nice break, and he's still involved, and he's having fun and everything. But, you know, there's going to come to a point where Joe may want to get in the ring and do a little bit before it's too late, you know. But then again, you know, with all the bumps and the bruises that you take over the years, I mean, my God, the feuds that he had in TNA, even before that, Ring of Honor, you think of some of the stuff he did in California. You know, that guy's a big boy, and, you know, all that weight on the joints over the years, you know, he might, you know, feel like $1 million right now since he's not in the ring. But it looks like he misses being in the ring.
Yeah, I mean, DT, he's 41, which is not bad. I mean, he's 8 years younger than Jericho. But you're right, he's a heavier set guy, but he's an in shape heavy set guy. But he's had a lot of injuries. He's been injured a lot.
Yeah.
As has Rey Mysterio. So, I mean, that might have taken wear and tear. But listen, he's setting himself up for a great role for after life in wrestling. Reminds me a lot of Taz in a lot of ways, doesn't it, DT?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Taz, though, is that WWE, look, Taz had the injury also, so it felt like he pretty much had to retire. But it also felt like WWE really preferred to have Taz just do color commentary, and I don't know if Taz was ready for that, you know, for the type of, you know, everything that's involved with it. But you know, I mean, they're similar in styles, but they're two totally different people. I think Joe, he's been injured many times before, but from what I understand, he's healthy right now. So, yeah. So getting back to Raw. So we have the attack on Dominik, and immediately WWE posts tons of photos online. The photos I just posted were not from Raw today. It was behind the scenes after. So after that, we get a video recap of what Retribution did during the week. Now, I talked about it in detail Friday. Did you see Retribution's attack on Friday?
Yes, I did.
What'd you think of it?
It was crazy, but again, I hate to keep pushing the narrative, but it's hard to avoid the size and the intimidation factor. To me, isn't really there because there's no real. It's funny when people saying Dijakovic might be in him. I'm going, where was he? There's no one there over 5'8". I mean, where's Dijakovic? Everyone's throwing around names. You know how it's going.
Yeah, I mean,
it's fun to do that, but realistically, I don't think Dijakovic's part of that group.
No, I mean, the three names that everybody keeps throwing around is Vanessa Bourne because of the hair. Some people have said Chelsea Green, but there really hasn't been any sign of her. Some people actually think Carmella might be behind one of those masks because of the blonde hair. And the interesting one is there's some people out there that are convinced. I'm not saying I'm one of them, but they're convinced that Xavier Woods is under one of those masks because of the eyebrows.
I don't think they would do that, yeah.
But here's the thing, you know, and I don't know if you heard anything that I've teased, and I talked about it yesterday on Breakfast Soup, but, you know, I teased this last week, and, you know, I really wanted to see Raw tonight to basically convince me if my thinking might be onto something. But, you know, I see everybody out there bringing up Chelsea Green, Vanessa Bourne, Dijakovic, a couple of people from Evolve. Now, I ask you this question, since you brought up some of those names as well. Mm-hmm. Why would Chelsea Green want Retribution on WWE?
The narrative that sounds cool, but they will never sell it, is firing her fiance, who they're not going to even acknowledge because he's not part of the company anymore.
See, that's the thing. That's the thing I think people never thought about for a minute. Why would any of them want Retribution on WWE? My original thinking before we really saw anything, this was before even SmackDown last week, I said, you know, storyline, it would be cool if it featured all people who were released from WWE due to COVID, because they would have legitimate reason to want Retribution. The problem is, like, you know, you go to an amusement park and you have to be this tall in order to be on a ride. Yeah. This feels like you got to be this short in order to be part of Retribution. Everybody looks tiny. I ripped it to pieces on Friday because they were dropping their weapons before they beat people up, which is ridiculous. Today, they showed a segment where they're in front of the Performance Center, and one schmuck can't even lift the cinder block high. It looks like he's bowling. He throws it through the window. He picks up the second cinder block, and he throws it through a window that's already broken. Because they obviously don't want to make too much damage, because WWE doesn't want to pay too much, but it looks so goofy. And not only that, I could swear that there was a receptionist behind the desk, and she's just standing there. All I saw was, I could have sworn I saw her head, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You want to impress me? You throw the fucking guy who was arguing with them, that's saying you can't be here, you can't be here, throw him through the fucking plate glass window. You know, they threw the cinder block that didn't look impressive. You know, you just had Santana and Ortiz, albeit, you know, a junk car, but they just destroyed a car on Dynamite, and all we see today is a car that's already conveniently flipped upside down, and they're just jumping on it like fucking little kids, you know, jumping on a couch. It's not, I'm not impressed. And not only that, with Friday, you got about 20, 30 people around ringside. And you mean to tell me when they drop their weapons in storyline, they don't just all gang up? I mean, nobody has a set of balls.
They could have rushed him and overtook him. I mean, even this is the least intimidating crew I've ever seen in wrestling, like a beatdown crew. You're right, DT. I'm glad you caught that second cinder block that went right through an already broken window. There was, and I do believe there was somebody behind the desk. So you caught the same things I caught.
I catch everything. Yeah. But then I started thinking about it, and I was bringing this up Friday a little bit, kind of teasing it. I got into it Saturday on game night, brought it up on Breakfast Soup yesterday. I'm going to bring it up here now. You know, when you had Nexus, you had the NWO, they didn't need to be masked because all the people that were involved, you know, maybe Nexus weren't major players, but they were on WWE television enough that everybody knew who they were. And when they destroyed the Raw ringside area, they destroyed everything. Here, and I'm not going to repeat what I said Friday. Everybody could tune into the Don Tony show to hear it. But here on Friday, you know, they spray paint a little line through the banner. They spray paint plexiglass, which you could literally, I'm not kidding, you could clean it with this, no joke. And then the best part, the chainsaw. You know, I got a chainsaw. I'm going to cut everything I possibly can around the ringside area. The guy looked like he was afraid, like he would cut the rope and be so daint about it. So I was thinking, if these people unmask, and it's Chelsea Green or Vanessa Bourne or any of these names, people are going to be like, are you kidding me? This is what was causing havoc? Like, I think people would be like, this is a joke. You have to have some names, big names involved behind it. The problem is everybody looks so small. So if Dijakovic gets revealed to be one of them, this is going to be the Black Scorpion all over again.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, when the Black Scorpion started with one person and ended up with Ric Flair, and you look at the physique originally, and it didn't have the same physique as Flair later on. But my idea is somebody needs to be the leader of Retribution. We're only about 3 months away to Survivor Series, and I thought, who in WWE would want some retribution? And I came up with one name. And when I came up with this name, I said yesterday on Breakfast Soup, I got to see Raw tonight because something very important needs to happen. And what needed to happen, happened. My idea, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but my idea is the person behind Retribution is Shane McMahon. I Googled last week, every website, every podcast, not one person said Shane McMahon behind Retribution. When I said it last week, I said, you know, I got to wait for Raw. I want to see if Retribution shows up at Raw Underground. I want to see if Retribution tries to invade Raw Underground. It's too coincidental that Retribution and Raw Underground show up at the same time. They showed up at the same time. If you think about it, they showed up the same week. They haven't done nothing to the Raw Underground set. They haven't tried to invade. They haven't tried to destroy it. They haven't attacked anybody. I think when the guy cut the rope with the chainsaw, Raw Underground has no ropes. So I think Shane McMahon may be the leader of Raw Underground, and that would explain all these people that are under the masks, even though they may have no reason for retribution. Shane is giving them opportunity. Shane promises them opportunity. And I think that could possibly lead to Survivor Series. Because remember, Stephanie now is showing up on Raw. Stephanie is showing up on SmackDown. You've had Triple H, who obviously is on NXT. So I could possibly see Survivor Series almost like Invasion 2001 with no-name people. I hate to use that term, but you could see Raw and SmackDown represented by Stephanie, NXT represented by Triple H, and Retribution represented by Shane McMahon. I know some people out there may not like the idea, but this is just my mind, you know, racing and trying to come up with something. And again, the fact that it showed up the same week as Raw Underground, the fact that they have not done anything to affect Raw Underground, I come up with the idea Shane McMahon the leader of Retribution. What do you think about it?
That's not bad, but DT, do you think then he's utilizing, like you said, people who are around ringside, just random people? There's no names under there, like say a popular name being thrown around. I would tend to agree because he has reason to want Retribution. Drake Maverick being part of that crew who has not been seen for
because Drake Maverick got signed to WWE and he got his contract back, so there'd be no reason for him to want Retribution. Shane McMahon is using people that have not gotten really good opportunity. Shayna Baszler, everybody said, oh, Vince doesn't like her. She's not getting opportunity. She was supposed to get a title by now. A lot of people feel, and I've said this before, nothing against Becky Lynch, but Shayna ran into the red-headed wall, the orange wall. And you look at, Yabba Dabba Do, and by the way, Dabba Kato and Shayna Baszler, I thought were awesome tonight. I thought they were awesome. Some of the people that Shayna Baszler brawled with, and I have their names because that's the pleasure of doing Wednesday's show. I've actually covered a lot of these people before. So a lot of the people that, everybody's like, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? I actually noted all their names. But you look at everybody, maybe Eric of the Viking Raiders, he's just fine. But I feel like Shane McMahon is going to give a bunch of people opportunity, and I think Shane McMahon, again, this is just an idea. It's not a prediction, it's an idea. But if you want, anybody out there could come up with anybody you want under the mask. The first question, and for everybody listening, do that to your friends and piss them off. When your friends, everybody tuning in, says to you, oh, so-and-so's under the mask, you turn around and you say to them, why would blah, blah, blah want Retribution? Why would Dijakovic want Retribution? Because Killer Cross kicked my ass? So if they're hired guns by Shane, they're going to take over WWE. They're going to take over Raw. They're going to take over SmackDown. And that's enticing to them. Anybody could be under the mask then. So, again. So
it's like a smoke and mirrors crew, like where who's ever under there is really irrelevant. It's who's at leadership that really matters, not the players themselves.
The problem I have, and I joked about this on Friday, is the ninjas almost have the same outfit. It's almost like the ninjas, like, okay, guys, before you take a shower, leave the outfits in catering because now we have the Retribution to put them on. It's not exactly the same, but their outfits are very, very similar. Do I want to see something with the letter R on the outfits? I think that would look really, really ridiculous. Yeah, but, like I said, I always try to think outside the box. And last week, when I was thinking about it a little bit, I said, I'm curious to see if anybody else out there has thought of this, and nobody did. So I said, okay, now I got to try to make this fit. And I was thinking about it more and more, and you think back like 7-8 months ago, and Shane McMahon has been the name left out of WWE entirely. It's been Triple H, Vince, and Stephanie. So Retribution shows up to cause havoc to Raw or SmackDown, making unsafe working environments for MVP and others. And while they're causing havoc to Raw and SmackDown, here is Shane McMahon trying to please the WWE Universe and the WWE offices. Hey, look at my brand. Shane McMahon doesn't even have to pull the mask off and reveal that it was, it was me all along. I'm spoofing Vince with Austin, but you could have the hacker come back and reveal camera footage where Shane McMahon was around Retribution. They could do something like that. I'm telling you, again, I wanted to come up with something. No one else did. So if it happens, but I don't know. I like my idea, to be honest with you.
It's possible. I mean, yeah, Shane can totally have something to do with it. And again, maybe there are a couple of, players under there, but maybe it's just mostly those people who are surrounding the ring, who half of them, we don't know their names.
Yeah, but by keeping them under the masks, you could have anybody being under there for now, just filling bodies. And then the people who you want to ultimately be revealed could be totally different people. The problem is you have one person with these really thick eyebrows, really thick eyebrows, and everybody, that, I was talking to about it, and I gave him my ideas. I said, go look at the roster. I said, go give me a list of people who have thick eyebrows like that. And people are like, holy shit, look at this person, look at this person. So they got to be careful not to have anybody that looks very, very revealing. But, right now it just looks like some teenagers, causing havoc that does not intimidate. Like I said, the minute you drop your weapons before you start beating up people and you're punching people sideways, it's not very well done, in my opinion. But it has potential.
DT, you think this will bleed into NXT, or they'll just keep this as a Raw SmackDown thing?
I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
I'm not sure yet, to be honest with you. I'm really not sure. But like I said, the one thing that I said a few times over the weekend to a lot of people was, I got to see if Retribution interferes with Raw Underground at all. I said, and if I'm a betting man, they do not interfere at all. And if you saw tonight, they did not interfere at all. Not at all. Zero. I think cutting the ropes, kind of made me think, oh, Raw Underground, no ropes. I think they're to cause sabotage to make Raw Underground look that much more attractive. Raw Underground might be like this version's NWO, it's just the alternative. I know it's not the same, but again, this is just me thinking outside the box, trying to make it interesting. Curious to see what ends up happening. So we had the highlights of Retribution this week. Then next we had Zelina Vega come out with Andrade and Angel Garza. She's talking about how she didn't poison Angelo Dawkins, not Angelo Dawkins, his partner. What's his partner's name? Montez Ford. He didn't poison. She didn't poison Montez Ford. Why would she, ruin that opportunity for her guys that she doesn't know who did it? I gotta tell you, man, I think Bianca Belair might turn heel.
Think so?
I think so, because, they didn't even acknowledge that TikTok video, whatever it was, a Zoom video where you had Zelina Vega in her house and Bianca Belair showed up and attacked her in her house. They didn't even mention that today on TV. But again, if Raw was taped last week, that's probably why it wasn't mentioned, because the taping had already occurred and, was already in the bag. So they weren't going to add commentary to it. But the thing that caught my eye is Zelina Vega, who kept insisting during the match with Bianca Belair, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. And you kind of, for me, I felt a little sympathetic for Zelina Vega. Then when you had Charlie Caruso, who basically asked Bianca Belair, and she said, Zelina Vega is denying, poisoning Montez Ford. What do you have to say to that? What's your reaction to that, your response? And if you go back and look at Bianca Belair's answer, she totally ignored the topic. And she also said something else that caught my eye. She says, look, me and Montez Ford agreed that our careers are separate. And I almost felt like that was planted, that if Bianca Belair turns heel, like WWE is trying to plant that seed that when you see Montez Ford, that doesn't mean you see Bianca Belair in the same place. I am starting to wonder if they, not saying split on TV, because they could still, be a couple, kind of like Andrade and Zelina Vega. But I'm telling you, when I was left with everything that went on tonight, even though Bianca Belair got her revenge on Zelina Vega, which might not have even been revenge if Zelina didn't poison Montez Ford, be interesting if Bianca Belair poisoned Montez Ford, which I don't think it's the case. I don't know. I was left with feeling bad for Zelina Vega and being like, Bianca Belair is acting like the EST bitch. And I say that character-wise. She's not a bitch. I don't know. What do you think?
I like Bianca Belair. She's one of my favorite, like, new generation women in wrestling. I'm not sure, DT. I think she's overstating the fact that Zelina did it, and I'm going to continue to beat her down. Zelina keeps begging for mercy that she didn't do it. By the way, and I know, segueing to this, what do you think of Zelina Vega as a wrestler, DT? I don't like it. I think she should stay as a manager. She just looks like she's too tiny. She just looks like she should get wrecked. Maybe against a real athletic girl like Bianca Belair, but Bianca just manhandled her, literally.
I don't have a problem with her in the ring. I think right now, because they portray her as a manager, I don't think they want Zelina Vega to show everything she's got. The match went longer than what I expected it to be, but I don't have any problem with Zelina Vega in the ring. Like I said, I just think that they want to focus on her being a manager. And this match, it felt like Zelina Vega reluctantly, she didn't want to be part of the match. She's like, look, I didn't do anything. And the storyline purposes, I kind of like believed her. And you kind of feel like it should be the other way around. I'm telling you, I think something might be up with Bianca Belair. So, not saying it's going to happen now, but people out there, you don't just out of nowhere, and yes, this is WWE writing doing this, but you don't out of nowhere just say, all they're asking is, what's your condition of Montez Ford? Oh, me and Montez Ford, we agree that our careers are separate. And I'm saying to myself, the fuck does that have to do with, what was just asked? It just felt forced by WWE, like WWE forced to plant that little seed. That was said for a reason. So, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Oh, shit. I left, my apologies, everybody. My apologies. I left Retribution invaded the show, everybody. I left the Retribution pick up for about 5 minutes. I didn't realize that. So I'm sorry, everybody. Sorry, everybody. They screwed up. They screwed up. They invaded the show. Look, everybody. Retribution. No, I'm not going to stop fucking with the show. But, so we had Bianca Belair get revenge on someone who maybe she had no reason to get revenge on. But then we had Angelo Dawkins beat Andrade, which was a quick match as well. The fact that Andrade lost, the fact that Zelina Vega lost, making me start to think that Andrade and Angel Garza might be winning those belts at SummerSlam. What do you think?
I think they will win the belts. Yeah, they should be tag team champions anyway. I mean, they've been leading to this, I think, for a while. So I think they will take the titles.
Yeah. What'd you think of the match with Angelo Dawkins and Andrade?
It was all right. I'm more of a Montez Ford guy. Angelo Dawkins to me is like the other guy. I mean, Montez to me is the yeah. I'm not a big fan. He's all right. But Montez is the talker. He's the worker. He's the high flyer. He's the hype man. I mean, he's got it, all over Dawkins. He's good. Dawkins is a good partner for him. But if they go solo, Dawkins is in trouble. Montez is going to shine. But that's neither here nor there right now. But as a team, they're fantastic. I love them. But I think Garza and Andrade will take the titles. I want to see them in tags. I don't want to see these guys singles match up yet. Because obviously Andrade and Garza are a little bit more established, obviously, as solo stars. Montez Ford and Dawson are not, so they'll always usually be on the losing end of those singles matches.
I personally think Angelo Dawkins holds his own on TV. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Crime Time. I mean, yes, maybe people felt that JTG could cut a promo a little bit more than Chad Gaspard. But they were both strong on the mic in different ways. Angelo Dawkins, it's kind of like Crime Time meets New Day a little bit with him. Sure, Montez Ford definitely has a little bit more charisma than Angelo Dawkins. Like Montez Ford is the over the top energy, and Angelo Dawkins is like chill, relax, have a drink, have a cup. But I enjoy Angelo Dawkins a lot. Anybody out there that dares say like Angelo Dawkins is the Marty Jannetty of the team, I think they're out of their fucking minds. I think he is excellent in what he does. Definitely holds his own.
No, it's not bad. Again, I didn't even call him that, but I know other people might use that terminology. But
yeah,
again,
some wrote it tonight.
yeah.
Jim.
No, and that's listen. That's part of this the wrestling community. That's an old thing. That's someone's the Jannetty, someone's the Michaels. But I don't think in that aspect. I just think Montez Ford just has so much charisma. It's kind of hard for I think Dawson to play up to that. I mean, he's his own self. He doesn't have to be like Montez Ford. That's what makes him a great team. They're not a copy of each other. They work well together. But again, when you think about the future, you see a shining star in Montez Ford. And maybe Dawkins will be one too. That would be great. I wish the best for both.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, they have this line now for SummerSlam. What is it? You never saw it coming? So I'm wondering, as crazy as it sounds, that actually could end up happening multiple times at SummerSlam. The Claymore kick, you never saw it coming. Maybe we find out Shane McMahon's the leader of Retribution. You never saw it coming. Bianca Belair poisons Montez Ford. It's revealed at the SummerSlam. You never saw it coming. You look at some of the things going on. Maybe a swerve related to Wyatt and Braun Strowman. It doesn't necessarily have to be Alexa Bliss. Don't discount Nikki Cross in this deal. Like I said to everybody out there, I kind of would rather see Nikki Cross be with The Fiend than Alexa Bliss. You never saw it coming. So I'm telling you, everybody, there could be 4 or 5 times. Remember that, because when we do the SummerSlam recap, you might have 4 or 5 times during the night for different matches where I'm going to be up here and say, you never saw it coming. I'm telling you, the way they wrote that, there is some swerves going on SummerSlam. You don't suddenly just throw that out there and base it just on the Claymore kick, So something to think about. Again, there's nothing wrong to, brainstorm ideas. You never know. Something might end up being right. So we had the VIP lounge with MVP Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. MVP once again blaming unsafe working conditions as far as his loss to Apollo Crews. Apollo Crews comes out and, he's basically saying, look, I don't have a problem with Lashley. I don't have a problem with Shelton Benjamin. I got a problem with you, MVP. And this ends up leading to a match between Shelton Benjamin and Apollo Crews. Now, it's non-title because MVP's got to get his rematch, but lo and behold, Shelton Benjamin gets the win on Apollo Crews. What do you think?
Yeah. I'm a big Shelton fan, so anytime I can see Shelton get the W, because he took way too many L's in the last 3 years, I'm all happy for Shelton. Anything, even if it's a meaningless win, he didn't win the belt or anything, but to see him and get over on TV, I'm a Shelton fan, so I was happy to see that. And I'm liking Apollo Crews as champ. I've done a turnaround on quite a few of these guys because I think, listen, under conditions, a lot of people give these guys a hard time. I'm going to give them credit because it's not easy. I mean, again, there's been no crowds for a while. They're doing the best they can. And, I'll give them more credit than criticism. And I think it's a chance for guys like Shelton. Talk about who deserves, quote unquote, something Naomi deserves. What does Shelton deserve, DT, for all he's done over the years? So, again, I'm in their corner, the Hurt Business. I want to see those guys do as good as possible. I even want to see Lashley get the World Championship at some point. So, again, I'm all about the Hurt Business. I like the whole crew.
I want to see somebody from Retribution take the 24/7 title from R-Truth and make that 24/7 title be defended during Raw not Retribution, somebody from Raw Underground to beat up R-Truth and take that 24/7 title. Maybe even it could be Dabba Kato. Because we did get a 24/7 title change tonight. Some reason Tozawa comes out there and, he's the current 24/7 champion. He's around the area with the ninjas. And it ends up one of the ninjas is R-Truth. He rolls up Tozawa new 24/7 champion, I think for the 38th time.
Yeah.
You know, if anybody out there really wants to look up something to get a kick out of it, if you think 38 title reigns is a lot, look up Jerry Lawler's title history. I think Jerry Lawler's had like 120 titles. I'm not kidding. I remember this from like 10 years ago. I remember somebody pointing out to me, like, do you know Jerry Lawler has like 100 to 150 championships? Like, not all different belts, but as far as title reigns, Jerry Lawler arguably might be the most frequent heavyweight champion of our generation.
Yeah, Lolo. I mean, well, the Memphis title, all the titles in Memphis, he held TV title and the Memphis Heavyweight Championship, tag team. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you're probably right. Lolo's probably clocked in over 100 titles. He was AWA champion at one point.
Yeah, yeah. Now I thought, you know, the ending of the match with with Shelton Benjamin and Apollo Crews just really, really hokey because, you know, you have Lashley interfering and the referee sees it, and you don't have the referee doing one of these out of here. You know, he just basically it was sloppy. I mean, it's cool to see, you know, Shelton Benjamin get a win, but, you know, he had the 24/7 title and they took it off of him almost immediately. You know, I don't know. I don't know if it's smoke and mirrors with Shelton Benjamin. I like that he's part of the Hurt Club, but I think they need to do a little bit more with Shelton Benjamin. Maybe him and Lashley could be tag champs.
That would be good too. Or him and MVP could be tag champs. Yeah.
Well, MVP, I like MVP as the manager, and I think Lashley and Shelton Benjamin would be a pretty cool tag team champion because honestly, I no longer call him Ricochet, and it's not his fault. It's just WWE, the way they're treating Cedric and Ricochet right now. I call him Ricochet. They're treating Ricochet like Ricochet. I'm just spelling it from now on, Ricochet. You know, they basically they put him out there with the Viking Raiders. You know, they really can't buy, you know, anything. I mean, the Viking Raiders, Ricochet, Cedric Alexander, you know, they win a match, but it's a fucking minute long. They look like goofs. Hey, I didn't have time to put my wrist tape on and stuff. We thought about 2 months ago, when we were in COVID, we thought, hey, you know, Ricochet, Cedric Alexander, I kind of like them as a tag team. You know what? I could see them as tag team champions. And Andrade and Angel Garza passed them right up. Then we get all the goddamn skits with the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits. And Ali returns. And, you know, they use him for 1 or 2 weeks. And now it feels like his momentum is shot. I hope Ali is involved with this Retribution story.
Yeah, I was going to say he's another one on that, you know, kind of short list, so to speak. No pun intended.
Yeah. They're treating Ricochet like Ricochet. You know, I think they could do so much more.
They gave up on him. And I know you always say, and I give you credit, they don't really literally give up on anybody. There's people who do the job and then they can come back. Ruby Riot's, you know, they're showing she can do it. They've done it with a ton of people. Look at Lashley. But I really think Ricochet might be the exception to the rule where WWE is just not big on him at all. You know, I just don't think they are.
You know, you look at that 24 special they did on the network of him, it seems like that they're really high on this guy. I personally think that because Ricochet is still fairly young, that I almost feel like they're saying, you know what, you know, we could wait a little while with him. Let's dedicate this time a little bit more for some other people. The problem is a year goes by, 2 years go by, and now you got this new person that you brought up from NXT. Oh, you know what? Let's give this person a little time. But now another year goes by with Ricochet. And, you know, though he's a fan favorite and he is phenomenal in the ring, you just see a year, 2 years, 3 years fly by. And you see other people getting opportunity. You know, I don't get it. I mean, I understand why they just decided, after 1 week, fuck Stink and Vink, that was going nowhere. But they are treating Ricochet like they're treating Ricochet like he's 40 years old.
Yeah.
Way past his prime. Still could do it a little bit, but, get a win here and there. A little bit of comedy mixed in, but mostly, he's just to fill in for the show. Ricochet should be one of their biggest stars, and I don't know why they can't utilize him the proper way. Put him on SmackDown. Let him feud with AJ Styles. Let him feud with Matt Riddle. There's so many people on Cesaro, Nakamura. There's 4 people right there he could have great matches with. And you know what? That may happen.
Yeah, we'll see. I just, right now, he's kind of stuck in Nowheresville, and he's a talent. I just don't think they know how to utilize him unless they give him a complete gimmick overhaul.
Yeah. We had a couple of backstage interviews. Randy Orton, Drew McIntyre talking about Randy Orton's history, and for some reason he brings up Mick Foley, which was kind of like, oddball. Even though I will say this, Mick Foley's feud with Randy Orton, when Randy Orton spit in his face, that was a great feud, man.
Yeah.
That felt like Mick Foley really was helping elevate Randy Orton. But McIntyre, it felt like the interview was just filler. It didn't really feel like it was much for me. I don't know why McIntyre really didn't come out to try to save the day for Nature Boy, when I think about it a little bit, storyline purposes. But next we have Peyton Royce with Billie Kay in her corner, beat Liv Morgan with Ruby Riott in her corner. Basically, you had the Riot Squad in the ring. The Iconics come out. They're basically talking smack to the Riot Squad. But then this time around, when they talked about their team being iconic, they didn't do their usual, like, they're serious now. Instead of saying, we're iconic, they just said, we're iconic. So they're trying to take themselves a little more seriously. A little bit of a faux pas, a little bit of, Ruby Riott, a little errant ways outside the ring. And distracted Liv Morgan for some reason. Peyton Royce hits her spinning brainbuster for the win. And you kind of thought that there was going to be some fighting or some big arguments in the ring between Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott, but instead they just focused more on the Iconics, laughing at them that they got the win, or one of them got the win. And then, we go to Raw Underground.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. There was a little weirdness between Ruby and Liv saying stuff back and forth to each other. But they went right back to the announcer's desk and just went to another segment. They were saying, it looks like the Riot Squad is not on the same page quite yet. There's still more mending offenses to be done. So I think they want to make like, these girls are not exactly back together yet. But I don't think it could be another turn. Do you, DT? You think they're going to...
I'm not sure yet. I mean, look, I don't think they're going to put Liv Morgan and Mandy Rose on the same brand, just because their look is so similar, even though they kind of cut a little bit of Mandy Rose's hair. I just think that this is more maybe to put a little bit more legitimacy behind the Iconics now. I'm not saying that the Iconics are better than the Riot Squad, but the fact that they were more serious in their promo, the Iconics, this might be a little bit of tweaking in the Iconics character, and I'm not complaining with that. Peyton Royce is obviously the one with a lot more in-ring talent of the two, but there's many tag teams over the years where one of the two people are uber talented, and the second person might, just, have a little bit of a presence there, but not much. So, it just sucks that they don't have a plethora of women as far as tag teams even on Raw, so they had to use the Riot Squad for this.
Yeah.
So we then have a little bit of Raw Underground, Riddick Moss beating Cal Bloom. Riddick Moss, I kind of like what they did with him. You know, they didn't have to show his, you know, very, very tiny calves. But I tell you, overall, you know, Dabba Kato tonight with Raw Underground was great. Shayna Baszler, you know, fucking around with those 3 women. By the way, I think she pinned Marina Tucker. And the other 2 women that she was beating up was Sofia Castillo and Emily Anzulis. You all may remember I posted all those photos of Emily Anzulis. She's been on some reality sports shows as well. I think she might have been one of the shows that featured The Rock was involved in. But they both did great. And Dabba Kato with the testicular claw.
Oh, God, yeah.
I thought that was great. And Shane is like, no, that's allowed. That's allowed.
That's allowed.
If that's allowed, then nothing should be off limits. I mean, look, the only complaint that I had this week with Raw Underground is something they did not do as much last week. And they did it this week, and it pissed me off. And the reason why they're doing it is because a lot of these wrestlers are not UFC fighters. And if you watch closely, they're not trying to be UFC. Because in wrestling, you do punch and you do kick. But they're trying to do lots of takedowns. They're trying to do submission moves. And I don't know if it was Marina Tucker that did it, but one of the 3 women tried to put some type of an arm hold on Shayna Baszler with their legs. And if you look at it closely, like Shayna Baszler is like pushing her head in the person's leg to try to make it look like this person has like a real good hold on her. And it was just, there was so much daylight between her leg and Shayna. It was that I didn't like. And because they're not takedown, you know, artists and submission and fighting, they have to do all these crazy ass camera switches, you know, because a kick is totally missing the bar. So we'll switch it to another camera angle while it moves. Too many camera angles today, and those camera angles are being designed to cover up all of the sloppiness. There was a lot of sloppiness. If people watch it back, there were tons of sloppiness on Raw Underground today.
Yeah, there was. I mean, I want to see more from some of the people on there, like what's his name, Wayne Bloom's son, Cal.
Yeah, he's okay.
He looks just like his dad, doesn't he? God,
everybody
remembers them.
I don't think they look alike at all. I got a picture of both of them here. I don't know. Cal looks like he's got a brother from another mother. So they.
You think so?
Yeah, I think. They just. I don't know.
Wrestler. Well, most people remember his dad from Beverly Brothers. That's not really a good depiction. If you go to the AWA days when he was in Destruction Crew with Mike Enos, it was much better work then. The Destruction Crew was much cooler. Beverly Brothers are a very forgettable team. Probably half the people don't even remember them. But yeah, I mean, his son looks pretty cool. I mean, that matchup with Riddick Moss was pretty cool. Again, I'm getting accustomed to it second weekend. I liked it better this week than I liked it better last week, DT, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I praised it last week. I'm going to continue praising it. I think it's definitely something that's catching on, and I think it's going to lead to a storyline. I'm telling you, I think Raw Retribution might have something to do with this. But, you know, again, you know, some of the people I understand why you're going to have squash matches. You want to showcase Dabba Kato. You want to showcase Baszler. You want to showcase some other people. The problem is, even if you look at, you know, nothing against Cal Bloom, if you look at the stuff with Riddick Moss, you know, there was one point where, like, he took him down and he's just looking at him. And that's really not Cal Bloom's fault, but that's just the wrestler showing everybody, wait a minute, I'm a wrestler. I'm not a UFC guy. So what moves do I do to just, like, start pounding someone to oblivion? They have to really be a little bit more selective as far as who they put in there. You can't just be throwing fresh meat to just get destroyed in there. It's got to be some people. I will tell you this much. You know who impressed the shit out of me also? What the hell's his name? Ruas, the Brazilian Ultimate Fighter.
Arturo, yeah.
Arturo Ruas. Yeah, this guy. I actually. Oh wait, I have his picture up already over here. Arturo Ruas. This guy. Let me take. Bye, Cal. This guy. He kind of has a little bit of that Tommaso Ciampa look to him, but this guy is legit. If anybody out there wants to see a little bit more of his work, he's done some stuff in Evolve. But he is a pretty badass motherfucker. So I personally think this week, Ruas, Dabba, Kato, Shayna Baszler. Those are the three I think that really came out of this. Ruas, obviously needs a little bit more seasoning, but right away, those are two guys that, were not doing anything for the most part with WWE TV.
Yeah.
So then this leads to Asuka versus Bayley. Everybody and their mother knew that Asuka was going to win. She's taking on Sasha at SummerSlam for the Raw Women's Championship. It was a decent match. Bayley getting a little bit cocky at the very end, doing the strut, and then Asuka hitting her with the Asuka lock for the submission. I don't know what happens on SmackDown as far as between Bayley and Sasha Banks, but they are going to be doing that triple battle royal. What do you think of that?
I think it should be cool. I mean, I enjoyed the match. I thought the match was pretty good. I mean, it got the job done. I mean, obviously we knew Asuka was going to pull it off. They work well together. I mean, listen, those are the girls in the whole company right now. Asuka, Bayley, Sasha. That's the three of them. It's all about those three right now.
Who do you want to see in the battle royal on SmackDown?
Win the battle royal on SmackDown? I'm kind of indifferent to it. Who do you want to see?
Well, of all the women, I mean, who would you like to see in the battle royal to possibly take on Bayley at SummerSlam?
I'd probably say Sonya Deville.
Right, but I'm saying there's like 60 women that could be part of this. You just want to see Sonya Deville? I mean, anybody in particular you want to see in the battle royal?
Who do I want to see take on Bayley? I thought you said.
No, who do you want to see in the battle royal? Who would you like to see?
Everyone. I mean, all the whoever they'll put in there. I mean, but the only one I want to see, the only girl I could see getting a push now was someone who could be a realistic challenger to her. I like to see someone like Sonya Deville. That's what I'm saying.
There's no fantasy pair-ups you'd like to see maybe go at it a little bit?
Trying to think. Well, Sonya and Mandy are already going at it. Ruby and Liv made up. I'm trying to think. Not that I could think of. No, not really.
Okay.
That's the women's division for you right now. Because, again, it's all about three people. I mean, it focuses around three particular women all the time.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised because there's tons of people in NXT that I would love to see maybe go at it with some Raw or SmackDown women. Yeah. Because there's a lot of women in NXT. You got... Everybody saw that picture with Shotzi Blackheart and Ruby Riott. I think it would be interesting to see them maybe go at it a little bit in the ring.
Yeah, because there's similarity. I mean, I like to see her as part of the Riott Squad. They reformed the Riott Squad. I personally think I want to see Rhea Ripley maybe take on Bayley. And I even said this on Friday. I think if Rhea Ripley were to take on Bayley, it's a shame that Sasha and Bayley have all the belts right now because Rhea Ripley could beat Bayley, and that could be WWE's way to bringing her on the main roster without even needing a storyline. She's the SmackDown Women's Champion. But I personally think that there's a few women in NXT, that I think it would be really cool to see them, get a little bit of exposure in the Battle Royal. Mercedes Martinez might be one. Mercedes might be one. I mean, I'm trying to think. Rhea Ripley is already out of time. I'm not really big on her anymore, but probably Mercedes might be one if they want to really push her, and I think they are. So I'd like to see if she goes in there and wrecks some people. So yeah, but maybe her.
I think Mercedes Martinez is going to take on Rhea Ripley at NXT TakeOver. So there's a lot of women that I'd like to see, interact a little bit. I want to see Io Shirai and Asuka maybe go at it a little bit. I don't think Asuka's going to be in the Battle Royal though, but Io Shirai, there's other women that she could go with as well. She could, there's so many women from NXT, Raw, and SmackDown. It kind of reminds me of the Royal Rumble. When you had Keith Lee going at it with Brock a little bit. But I really don't want to see Sonya Deville take on Bayley because it's two heels. Although Sonya Deville right now, I absolutely think she's phenomenal. I mentioned this on Friday. I think she could actually be the 2020 version of Melina, just without the red carpet. I think she could be the manager of Miz and Morrison.
Think so?
Yeah, I think she could be almost like Melina meets China.
But wouldn't that take her out of the mix of focusing on being a top female in the division?
No, because you have Otis and Tucker who would pair up with Mandy Rose. You'd have Miz and Morrison pair up with Sonya Deville. And they could, Mandy Rose has her singles career that she still does. I think Sonya Deville, I think they actually could elevate her by being with Miz and Morrison.
That's true.
So we'll see. But I hope, this is how I look at it. And I brought this up Friday. You have a Battle Royal on SmackDown. You're allowing Raw and NXT to take part as well. So I don't want to see anybody on SmackDown win it because then there's no need to have a triple brand Battle Royal. You could just have an elimination match or a Battle Royal featuring all your SmackDown stars. Everybody gets an opportunity. So to have Raw and NXT on that brand as well, just to have a woman from SmackDown win it anyway, it's kind of like, okay, you really just did that just to get a little hype for SmackDown. So I'd like to see somebody from NXT. I would be fine with. There's about 5 or 10 women in NXT that I think would be great. I have a great opportunity to maybe go against Bayley. I will say this: I feel whoever takes on Bayley, if it is from NXT, is probably not going to win.
Well, I'm trying to think who else could, Dakota Kai is getting pushed there in general as a heel, though. Who's the big babyface girl in NXT in the women's division besides Io Shirai, who's the champ?
Oh, you got Shotzi. You got a few women over there, but, it's just, like I said, the problem is Bayley and Sasha have strangleholds on those belts right now.
Well, that's what I was saying. When you were saying, I don't feel like, I could say whatever and it's going to be kind of meaningless because I think that they're really only, unfortunately, just focusing on this little crew of people. And I think the same thing, the only person who could probably defeat Sasha or Bayley is Asuka, or one will defeat the other. If Bayley turns on Sasha turns on Bayley, the belts will continue to go around that trio. Don't you think so, DT?
There's got to be a split sooner than later. There's a lot of women in WWE that are not happy that Bayley and Sasha have all the belts. I think they were given all the belts to set up the storyline of them splitting up. But there's many people that I'd like to see get a little bit of an opportunity. You could always have Naomi take on Bayley. You can always have... I don't think Lacey Evans would be a good opponent right now since they're both heels. But as far as baby faces go, you could always have that match with any baby face on SmackDown. Put Bayley against someone who is from Raw or from NXT that you would not be able to put them up against in any other way other than inviting this triple brand. And like I said, it's not even just who ends up facing Bayley, but I want to see some people interact with each other, just to see how it comes off on TV. Like a lot of people wanted to see Keith Lee and Brock. People wanted to see Brock and someone else. So, maybe see a few people interact you don't normally get to see. But getting back to Raw, so Asuka gets the win on Bayley. So right now, your current card for SummerSlam is the Street Profits versus Andrade and Angel Garza for the Raw Tag Titles. You have Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton for the WWE Championship. Apollo Crews versus MVP for the United States title. Dominik Mysterio versus Seth Rollins. Sasha versus Asuka for the Raw Women's belt. Bayley's opponent will be named Friday. Braun Strowman versus The Fiend for the Universal Championship. So we get the main event, Kevin Owens versus Randy Orton, and it was interesting because the main event started at 10:35. And I'm saying to myself, there ain't no way Randy Orton's wrestling a 20-minute match. You know, maybe against Edge, you know, the greatest match ever, but this is not going to be the greatest Raw match ever. So the match goes for about 10 minutes. You know, decent match. You know, I think the victor was expected. You know, Randy Orton gets the win, beating Kevin Owens. And we're in around 10:45 p.m. And right away, I'm thinking to myself, okay, is Retribution going to show up now and just annihilate Raw? Or are we going to get something else? And we realize we're getting a segment with Randy Orton and Ric Flair. And, you know, that left me with a big empty void this week with Retribution. Because you beat the shit out of a ton of people on SmackDown. You destroy the ring, you destroy the plexiglass, you destroy other things, you knock people out. Today, they throw a cinder block through a window twice, and they're jumping up and down an upside-down car. That is a huge step back from this week. Plus, why didn't we have like a suspension of disbelief that WWE had tons of security at Raw tonight in case Retribution showed up? Why was there no security?
I don't know. That's a good question.
You know? So there was no security.
Maybe your Shane theory, you know?
Well, yeah, that's why I say I think my Shane theory sticks. But, you know, so we realize we're not getting Retribution to close out Raw, but we're getting Randy Orton and Ric Flair. And obviously, this is going to lead to the split because you're not going to have a 15-minute segment just to hug it out. Maybe, you know, Claymore kick gets involved somewhere, Randy Orton. But instead, you have Randy Orton talking about Ric Flair, showing a lot of love, talking about how Ric Flair was there for him, I think in 2003 it might have been, when he had some problems. And, you know, bottom line is Randy Orton feels that this is not Ric Flair anymore. And he's lost respect for the Ric Flair that we have. And Ric Flair gets on the mic, gets very emotional. I know he's 71. I know maybe a little bit of his faculties are not the same as what they used to be. But that guy is still smooth as silk when he talks. Might sound like he's got a little bit more of a lisp now than before. But, again, this goes back to what I've said about Sonya Deville and Heath Miller and Eddie Kingston. You go down the line. When you have someone cutting a promo that is based on real deep reality, it's more passionate, it's more effective, it's more believable, it's just overall phenomenal. That's why all of those promos I mentioned stand out to a lot of people because it's based on reality. And Ric Flair tonight, you know, it was pretty emotional. I mean, I wasn't crying or anything, but he talked about being in the hospital and being in a coma, you know, for about 2 weeks, and how he just wanted to survive so he could tell all the people that, you know, he loved them. And he wanted to see Randy Orton not beat John Cena's title reign, but Ric Flair's title reign. And, you know, this was all based on reality today. And you could see, Randy Orton, you know, professional, doing his role, you know, which was to ultimately attack Ric Flair. But, you know, deep down inside, you know, they're very tight with each other. And what'd you think of the segment overall?
Well, I thought the match was okay with him and Owens. I thought it was a foregone conclusion that Randy would get the win. I didn't know so decisively. I thought it would be some sort of, you know, fuck finish. But, you know, he got him with the RKO, 1, 2, 3, and then he told Flair, obviously, to stay in the ring. I'm like, oh, here we go. I didn't think it was going to be a celebration or this is your life, Ric Flair. But I didn't know what to expect when they went to a commercial. But I figured the turn was coming. But I wanted to see what Randy's explanation was. And it was a little bizarre. I mean, Flair didn't really do anything to Randy. I mean, Randy was kind of just making shit up to just turn on him. And then Flair kind of almost just begging to be. It was a lot of realism, like where I'm not that Ric Flair anymore that he kept saying, that 2003, that's not me. And that was kind of like said, and there was definitely reality to what Flair was saying in the coma and how he felt about himself. And he's just Charlotte's dad, and he's just a guy who wants to be in the corner and just be part of the show. So that's a lot of reality to it. That's the total truth of the matter. So I liked it. I didn't think Flair could take the RKO. I didn't think that was going to happen. So they did, like you said at the beginning of the show, DT did the nut shot, which, I think was hard enough for Ric Flair to kind of get down in that position with all his situation currently medically and his age and the wear and tear on his body. So the way it pulled off and they did the lights out and everything, it went the way it had to go. Again, I'm fine with it. Considering Ric Flair's age and situation, I think it was as good a way to write him off as anything, and I'm actually totally fine with the way it closed out. I mean, could have did a few things differently, but all things considered, it went fine. And it only makes you, as a character, hate Randy Orton even more. Like Drew came out and, even, turning on Rick, like even him too, like, you're evil, like he was telling Randy he's evil. Drew was yelling at him.
Yeah, it was a little too late.
Yeah, it was a little too late, but again, I'm good with it. Again, all things considered, it was not a bad Raw tonight. All things considered. I'll
say this. When Randy Orton said that, he talked about Ric Flair and the pacemaker, that hits home because my mom's got a pacemaker, and I know a few people that have had, like real big heart issues. And basically, I think Randy Orton pretty much was telling Ric Flair, you're a shell of the man you used to be. And I have no respect for this shell of a man who, almost has no respect for himself. That Ric Flair, even Ric Flair, when he was saying, look, I'm not Ric Flair, I'm Charlotte's dad, and I just want to be, around you to, and what I like. Be part of the show, yeah. Be part of the show, yeah. What I like the most with Randy Orton, and it worked best with Ric Flair, over Edge, over Christian. It worked best with Ric Flair. After Randy Orton does what he does in his attack, when he hovers over the person and he's like holding that person's head and he's like almost feels like it's okay, you're out of your misery, that's it, it's over, you can rest now, you can go, we could, I just pulled the plug, like it's okay, now you could die in peace. Like he's got that, like look to him. And when he did it to Ric Flair tonight, and Ric Flair's laying there, selling that he's unconscious, and Randy's just hovering over him like that, I'm like, man, that I thought was better tonight than even with Edge or Christian.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, no, it was good. Again, taking a second, third look at it, I think everyone will be like, no, this is a pretty good way to go.
Yeah, I just hate that they had to do the lights going off.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just, I would have been fine if you would have heard din-in-it when they used to do the Raw general manager, and they used to blink the lights. But look, if Retribution is fucking with your lights, the lights are not going to flicker for a quarter of a second a few times during the night. The power's going to go off entirely or not. You know what I mean? So they just have. I'm telling you, it felt like watching a horror film on network television in the 80s. That right when you're supposed to see the stabbing, like it would just like flash to the next scene. Like even the Michael Myers, when the original Halloween, I remember it clearly. I actually watched it with my fiance for some laughs a couple of months ago. I have the original Halloween tape from NBC TV back in 1981 with commercials. And when Michael Myers is about to attack the guy, you see him like all of a sudden they go to the next scene. And even that part where he sees the girl topless, all you see is a silhouette of what his eyes would be seeing, and everything else on the screen is black. And it's like, that's how they cut it out, and it was just so goofy the way they did it. So, but overall, I got to be honest with you, I thought it was a decent Raw. I want to see if the rating goes up more than 50,000. I want to see what the rebound might have been with the second week of Underground. I want to see Nia Jackson underground. I want to see Tamina on underground. I want to see some more names that have been underutilized.
Same here. No, I agree. There's a lot of people who've been underutilized.
Yeah. So before we go, we got about 5 minutes left. I guess a lot of people would love to know just our quick thoughts on it, our views. A little bit of controversy over the weekend. Chris Jericho and Fozzy performed in South Dakota. The big Sturgis, the gathering of all the bikers and everything. They were saying 250,000 people, but it was nowhere near that number. But still, he performed, in front of quite a few people. Jericho's quote to performing, he said the venues are either outside or half capacity. We're sold out with 50% capacity. In Sioux Falls, South Dakota, they only had 35% capacity. They handed out masks at the door, even though a lot didn't wear them. They did temperature checks on everybody. They stayed on the bus all day long. And the Fozzy crew were tested, and they were clear. So a lot of people are calling for Jericho's head, from saying that, how could you do that right before a Dynamite? He's going to take on Orange Cassidy. People are in an uproar. We're in the middle of COVID, and you're performing. What was your take on the whole thing with Jericho and Fozzy? How did you feel about the situation?
First of all, I wasn't surprised that Sturgis goes on. I know all about the Sturgis biker culture. I work for one of the guys who goes every year with his crew. He didn't go this year because he's back here fighting to keep his business alive. So I know a lot of guys in the biker culture, being in the club business, and I knew that festival would go on. I didn't think for a second it would be canceled, if you know those dudes and the girls and guys into that culture. And it's not that they don't care. It's again, everyone took the proper precautions. The city and state officials allowed the concert to happen, and that's why people are saying Smash Mouth and Fozzy. There's 10 bands who played. I think even more than that if you count some local.
Well, what do you think about Jericho doing this?
It goes on every year. He was cleared to play, and that's the whole thing. He didn't do it. It was some outlaw mud show, as Jim Cornette would call it. The state and city officials cleared them to play. It was legal. He didn't do anything illegal. I don't think he did anything reckless. And again, people, I used to like Jericho. I don't like him anymore. Get over yourself, righteous self, please. Give me a break. All these saints. I can't believe all these saints who don't do anything wrong. Again, it was legal, and he did everything in the confines of following health protocol and legalities. He didn't do anything outside the box, and I think he's taking unjust criticism. And listen, the guy's a performer. He wants to perform, and it was allowed to happen. He did something that was given the green light. He didn't do anything outlaw. He didn't do anything reckless, in my opinion. I get why people are afraid. But then again, then same thing goes for the protests that went on in May and June. Thousands of people in the street. There's a lot of people not wearing masks there. You're going to criticize one, criticize the other. It's not a left or right thing. It's a human thing. But let's be fair. When we call shots, let's call them fairly.
The biggest complaint that wrestling fans have is he's got to wrestle Orange Cassidy Wednesday. And he's got to be around an entire crew of AEW wrestlers, roster, and staff. And even QT Marshall, he was around someone who tested positive for COVID, and he tested negative, and still they kept him away for 2 weeks. And a lot of people, their criticism is that Jericho has to work with AEW now in a couple of days, and this was reckless for Jericho to do right before AEW.
Well, they allowed him to do. The company allowed him to do. Was it reckless of the cons and Cody to green light it? I mean, that's what I'm saying. Does the fault lie on everyone who knew about this well in advance? Jericho's been scheduled for this concert for months, by the way.
So you're cool with it then? You're cool that he performed?
I don't think Jericho did anything to be reckless, and he was like, oh fuck, I don't give a fuck, because the guy from Smash Mouth said fuck COVID. That doesn't mean that Jericho agrees with that. Everybody can account for their own behavior. I think Jericho is not a heel in this aspect or a bad guy. I think he just wanted to perform. He found a state that he was allowed to perform in because of the low cases there. And like I said, city and state officials allowed this thing to happen. and he participated in it, but it wasn't anything as being a COVID denier or an irresponsible person. And I'm not even a Jericho fan. Everybody knows me. It's like, wow, Kevin's defending Jericho. I'm trying to be fair.
Well, I'll say this: that Smash Mouth performer that said "fuck COVID."
Yeah,
I think a lot of people misread that. He wasn't acting like he didn't believe COVID existed. He was basically telling everyone, fuck this disease that is ruining everybody's lives. Like, let's fucking enjoy ourselves for a little bit. And they were clean and they took precautions. Now, I go with this in a more scientific way. And I'm going to put this on the screen for everybody to look at. And for everybody that's been asking me all day long, what's the deal with all these yellow numbers you see on the left? I'll even put a bigger picture of it. All right, for those that are curious, all right, those numbers that I put over there, 28,000, all right, 332, okay? That represents the total number of COVID cases that has happened in South Dakota. All right. Okay. There has been a total of 94 deaths because of COVID. 94 total. All right. Okay. There has been a total of one death in COVID, I think, in the last week, or there was some days last week that there was only one death. The average daily cases in South Dakota right now, let me be a little bit more specific. They performed in Sturgis. All right, so when we talk about Sturgis in particular, Sturgis is located in Meade County. In the history of COVID, since the beginning of the year, there's been a total of 94 cases, not deaths, 94 cases in Meade County. Right. All year, 94.
Yep.
There's been a total of one death that's ever occurred in Meade County. They average 2 COVID cases a day. And when you look at the total population of South Dakota, let's say compared to New York right now has about 8 or 9 million people in New York City. Not even talking about all New York State. New York City, about 8 or 9 people. 8.4 million people to be exact. In South Dakota, they have 885,000, which is about 1/10 of what New York City has. You know how many deaths that have occurred in New York City due to COVID? Just New York City. I'm not talking about the whole New York State. You know how many deaths have taken place?
Give it to us.
32,354. So now if you figure, okay, all right, South Dakota's 10% of the size of New York City. So you figure if New York City had 32,000 cases, 10% would be 3,200 cases. They've had, as far as deaths, they had a total of 94. So when you add up that they have almost 900,000 people there, and they have had a total of 94 deaths, COVID in South Dakota is not a widespread problem. Yes, people can come from different areas, but the point is, like you said, South Dakota allowed it because they don't really have a COVID problem. So they allowed people to come from other areas. Bikers who are 50 and 60, I don't think have grandparents who are 90 and 100 right now that are alive. Everybody was temperature checked, and a lot of it was outdoors. So honestly, I personally feel, people say, oh, WWE might go to Atlantic City, WWE might go to Connecticut, WWE might go to Idaho. So if WWE could go there because there's virtually no COVID cases, then why can't other people go to an area where there's no... Sure, there could be a surge now, but, to me, it came across online that so many areas of the world right now still not allowed to do what people are allowed to do in South Dakota. And there's a jealousy involved.
They're pissed.
There's a jealousy involved.
Yeah,
and because of that jealousy, Jericho should be fired. This is fucked up. All these people getting together. Well, you know what? They're in an area where there isn't much of a COVID problem anymore. People are just bitter and jealous that they are watching other people return back to life sooner than they can. That's how I look at it.
DT, you're right. You're right on. I know we got to get out of here, but let's close out. You're right on point, because I saw even some band friend of mine saying he's a rich guy. What does he need to perform out there? I'm a working musician and I can't work. Kev, you can't work. We're locked out of our own club. Yeah. It's like, we can't even go there 5 at a time to clean. So it's like, exactly. We're like, listen, but we don't live in the Dakotas, so I'll move to fucking South Dakota and I'll start working tomorrow. I get it. You're right, DT. People are angry because it's cool over there. It's not over here, and we all live in the same country. But as you know, DT, different rules and regulations for different cities and states right now.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Everyone, we're going to get cut off in about 20 seconds. Tomorrow night, you have KNT Chronicles on Patreon.
Yeah, tomorrow night, 10:15, KNT.
I'll be back here Wednesday night for Wednesday Night Dynamite, 10:05 p.m. Eastern. I hope everybody joins me. And then Wednesday and Friday, I will explain. We're going to have Baron Corbin Demolition Night. Just like Disco Demolition Night, I'm going to have everybody start sending me the Baron Corbin cards. And then in about a month or two, we're going to put them in a bucket, light it up, and we're going to blow them up. I think we have to have a mission to get rid of as many Baron Corbin cards from the universe as possible. So,
nice.
All right, I will talk to you tomorrow. And, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, let me just close it out. Let me give a special shout-out to our friend Vito the Cop, Crimson Fury, and James Gruesome. They know why. Thank you, guys. And I'll check everybody else out tomorrow night on KNT, everybody on YouTube and Discord.